My name is Danny Ledesma, and I'm our Senior Advisor in Racial Equity and Social Justice. And welcome to our open house, our community open house. I want to start the night by thanking everyone for being here with us tonight, for dedicating a Thursday evening of your valuable time to participate in this meeting, so that we can continue to hear from our community and move forward. I want to just reiterate like what a special place I think Portland is. And I think that we're a special place because there's so much commitment and just a willingness to engage and participate in some of these really difficult and complex issues that we're trying to work through as a school district. So I want to thank everyone for your time. I want to appreciate you. And I'm going to turn it over to our Chief of Schools, Sean Bird, who has exited out of YouTube, and we'll move on from there. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Danny. Sorry about that. You all know my name. You've heard it several times. And again, it's my privilege to welcome you here tonight for the important work of investing in the wisdom of our students, families, and members of our community through our multi-year planning process to balance the number of students enrolled in our schools and programs. I know this is a very important process to you, and I believe strongly in the power of our community to partner with us as we optimize the schooling experience for our students. I'm looking forward to learning what we can tonight to shift and revise after tonight's open house and weaving the lessons that we've learned in our overall efforts with the Southeast Guiding Coalition to improve our enrollment structures. Successfully transforming our systems begins with a thought partnership of parents, community, school district, and I'm pleased to introduce Shanice Clark, our Director of Community Engagement, who will help us begin our presentation for the evening. Shanice.
Good evening, everyone. We can move on to the next slide. I know that we are really looking at our goals and values being driven by people like yourselves showing up to impact this process. And so through the critical stakeholders, students, staff, principals, parents, families, folks reaching multiple means, for the insight, foresight, and expertise to contribute to an iterative process where we use the input from you all and apply them moving forward in our recommendation. And so I think it is core and critical for folks. And on the next slide, it kind of reflects on our partnerships and collaboration being the critical value of what it means to really participate in this process with our Southeast Guiding Coalition, leading on a week-to-week basis, and the folks in our community. And can we move to the next slide? Wonderful. And as I just mentioned, partnerships and collaboration are at the center of the work. And our open house is a critical part of our journey, looking at enrollment and program balancing. And your iterative insight will help us make revisions as we continue along in this process. And we can move to the next slide. So a little bit of what we'll talk about today after acknowledgements and our goals is the process and timeline connected with themes and potential design that we want to have revised from folks in our community. And so after hearing that, we'll be breaking out into rooms and we'll direct you to a place where you can find opportunity to talk a little bit deeper about something that is of interest to you or something that you'd like to contribute and shift. And if we move to the next slide, just for logistical sake, we have just wanted to announce that there are language-specific programs for the open house occurring tonight. And so we'll pause here for a moment so folks can get directed to ppsenrollmentbalancing.com and find a language specific room if that is something that will help folks participate or need that access for our various supported languages. And I know we'll have concurrently these rooms open throughout the evening. So folks have an ability to participate just like they are here. And so leaving the slide up for just a moment for folks to direct themselves to ppsenrollmentbalancing.com for the language specific open house rooms. We can move to the next slide. So the open house is an opportunity tonight really to hear from the Guiding Coalition members and our Southeast Enrollment and Program Balancing process. We want to hear thoughts, questions, and hopes and expectations from each of you participating, and have a platform that really gives you each piece of what we're going to talk about tonight at ppsenrollmentbalancing.com. And so it's a great place to visit to get an overview of what we will discuss tonight and share your thoughts, questions, and feedback, as it really helps us strengthen our work and know that the thought partnership and expertise of families, students, and critical stakeholders across our district will be helping us refine and retool what makes the most sense for our students. And we can move to the next slide. This meeting will be recorded. I would love to pass it back to Danny Ledesma to talk a little bit about the goals for our process.
So as you all know and experience, we have quite a few complexities in this process. While we're trying to find balance between our programming and our enrollment, we have 3 goals that we'd like to try to achieve in this process, both in the process and as well as in the outcome. And these goals are audacious and also speak to some of the complexity of both the programming, our goals, and then also the direction of our district and the ways that we want to achieve our vision. So the first goal is that we really want to, in this process, is think about how we optimize the use of the physical space, our school facilities. And we really want to understand from the community and from relevant data how to meet diverse needs in terms of that physical space. So through a continuous learning process, we think that we can create and really support meaningful school and neighborhood connections that really serve the students and families who will be impacted in some of the changes in phase 1. We want to make sure that we are attending to schools that are either under-enrolled and also over-enrolled. We want to try to reach some balance of utilization between 60 and 80% at each of the schools. And we want to eventually move to trying to phase out or eliminate portable classrooms where it's not optimal. Our second goal, which is in the next slide, our second goal, which is in the next slide, if you could go to the next slide, please, is trying to figure out how we can equitably restructure enrollments. And we're really focused in on the middle grades. There is a school that will be opening in August of 2021, and that's at Kellogg Middle School, and a second comprehensive middle school in Southeast Portland in August of 22. So this is going to require us to reconfigure most or almost all of our K-8 schools to K-5 elementary schools. It will also help to support some of the programmatic goals that we have around middle school redesign that really speaks to how we can reimagine a different experience for our middle school students so that across our district, middle school students have equitable opportunities to learn, to really start to begin to explore and develop that agency and learning that happens in pre-adolescence. We also want to make sure that we're maintaining continuity in terms of program pathways. So you can see how we start with a physical space, and that becomes really difficult. Our second goal adds another layer of complexity where we're looking at enrollment. And then our third goal on the next slide is where we want to try to start to remedying some of the existing inequities and some of the resulting isolation that's happened. We believe that multilingual led and multilingual serving schools are a great way to create comprehensive learning that fosters student achievement, specifically for our English language learners and our students of color. And this resonates very strongly and aligns with our goals for racial equity and social justice. It also aligns with our strategies around targeted universalism, where we're really trying to address those gaps and opportunity for our students of color and make sure that learning is an equitable opportunity. There's equitable opportunities for learning. So this means that we really want to try to reduce co-located programs across the district and at all of the grade groups. We want to reduce instances of where there's a feeling of a school within a school, where a lot of programs may start to feel either isolated, especially in the neighborhood programs, and could potentially limit providing robust array of programming because of that school within a school strategy. So these three goals are important goals. They're goals that we believe help to build a district, help to reinforce a district that is transforming and reimagining and better preparing our students to lead a more just world in the future. However, they do add layers of complexity, and they are definitely interacting. And in this process, as you'll hear as I turn it back over to our Director of Community Engagement, this process is really trying to figure out how do we as a collective really start to think about ways that we can together try to build some common ground to think about where we can most effectively reach these goals.
Thank you, Danny Ledesma. I'd love to talk a little bit about our phases. What we're here in phase one, really focusing on the opening of Kellogg Middle School in 2021, and know in the future we'll have an opportunity to look at comprehensive enrollment and program balancing for K-12 in Southeast Portland in 2021, and in future phases look at the North, Northeast, and West Portland. And here tonight, we're really going to center and focus really on that Kellogg impact of creating a successful path forward for 2021. And we can move to the next slide, where we're going to talk a little bit about the discussion draft with Danny.
So tonight, we're happy to present to you another place where you can engage in the conversation. This discussion draft, I want to make sure that we're putting this discussion draft into context. As Shanice mentioned earlier, this is an iterative process, and we're trying to bring together a diversity of students, families, neighborhoods across the Southeast to be able to meet some rather audacious and important goals. And this entails a great deal of complexity. And our Southeast Guiding Coalition has been wrestling with so many of the issues that are related with this process. And so I think it's really important to note that what you're going to be discussing tonight is really a jumping point, another point for discussion. I want to be really clear that this is not anything that is already baked. It's not anything that even received the full unanimous support of our guiding coalition. Really what we wanted to do was to provide one option for folks to think about and to get as much of deep conversation, some reactions, some thoughts things that you're going to suggest to us to continue to consider, to prioritize, to emphasize as we go into this process. We think that in doing this iterative process, in helping to, and in being open to the iterative and the iterative and continual feedback from multiple perspectives, that we can get to a better result. So we really want to welcome changes, suggestions. We're hoping that you can be part of a critical friend group that continues to give us and to push on us to get to a proposal that really speaks to our goals and to some greater agreement amongst our diverse communities. So we expect that there will be major changes, and we look forward to continuing to work with our guiding coalition, who will meet 3 more times before putting together a more fully formed recommendation. This will be happening in December. And we want to encourage everyone to continue to stay engaged and to continue to provide feedback and to utilize the website, give feedback, continue to partner with our language access services so that we really do continue to get that diversity of perspective to inform this important process. So I'm going to introduce the next slide. And as you can imagine, there has been quite a bit of I would say some tensions, right? As we think about how different opinions. If you go to the next slide, how different opinions and different perspectives start to collide as we're trying to reach some wider agreements. And so we have, for your consideration, want to really surface some themes that have come up that start to get to where we're starting to reach some of those tension points. If we could go to the next slide, you can take a look at those. And what we wanted to do is to kind of shed some light on some of the discussions, some of the places where folks have had robust dialogue around some of the issues that come up in trying to achieve these goals, and what you'll see in the draft discussion moving forward. And we want to ask you to continue to reflect with us, and to give your thoughts and your opinions about sort of where these tensions and themes could potentially be resolved. So I'm going to turn it over to some representatives from our coalition who are going to give you a little bit more information about these themes and a little bit more.
Buenas noches, ni hao, and good evening to all. Thank you for being here. My name is Marta Almendares Langland, and I'm a parent at Atkinson Elementary in the DLI program. This process has been interesting and very tension-filled, dissonance-filled for all members, which is appreciative. The first thing that to be considered is that schools with imbalanced collocated programs are difficult for school communities, especially for smaller neighborhood programs. Now, that said, that varies depending on community. As we all know, that theory changes depending on the lived experience of individuals, which has caused a lot of dissonance within our group. And I think, Dee, you were going to speak on schools devoted entirely to a focus option.
Hi, I'm Dee Reddy. I'm a parent at Bridger Elementary. We're a split strand DLI program. And to echo Martha's point about the imbalanced co-locations, we have difficulty with our I think Atkinson's co-location works really well. Our co-location has some difficulties in that it's a very sought after program, and anybody who's in the neighborhood who does not get a lottery spot into the DLI, sometimes it can be disappointing to then be in the neighborhood program and feel like you didn't get into the program that you wanted to get into. And then the flip side to that is for entirely focused options, the inequity of experience there. We've had a lot of feedback from the community and the greater community in general, that it feels like people who have co-located programs really enjoy the diversity that it brings to their community to have 2 different types of programs housed within one building. And then populations who are being served by the DLI programs feel like being forced to move to a different location is making them feel like they're being segregated away from the rest of their population.
Within this, what we also found, Alexandra, are you gonna hit that one? Or I thought.
Yeah, I was gonna move into a little to speak of that. I'm Alexandra Fawn. I'm from Marysville School, and we're a neighborhood only option. And it feels there's a lot of feeling that if families that are able to have the choice to attend a focus option or neighborhood school, they will choose those over anything. They're highly sought after. So with that, neighborhood only schools are felt as second class schools and very dividing in the greater Portland public community. And so that has also created a huge divide amongst schools and options and families that have the choice to send their kids to other schools.
That said, thank you all. I want to move to the next point that we want to avoid high school overcrowding. At this point, the scenario that you will be presented specifically for Franklin High School does not avoid overcrowding. As well, we want to limit transportation impacts. As I was saying before, there's a lot of dissonance within our group of what that looks like depending on which community individuals are from. So I think what we're asking is as well to have others join in this conversation. Who else was going to speak on the other ones?
I can speak to the CSS program. We did, as a coalition, receive a letter from the CSS community explaining their program and the benefits of it. And while we understand the effects of relocating it could be problematic, we also have to weigh that with Harrison Park taking on very large changes with most likely becoming a middle school in fall of 2022. And that neighborhood program is going to be hugely affected. And there has been much information shared that that neighborhood also needs a safe school neighborhood program to access. So that's why the Clark building has come into consideration, but there has been no talk of, nor do I think there should be, of CSS not being part of Portland Public Schools community.
And along that theme too, I guess I would just iterate some of the really hard work of the coalition is that regardless of what we do here, there's changes for lots of communities within our cluster. And it's really challenging work to try to balance sort of equity and fairness across all the communities. And so we are here tonight to be very open to everybody's ideas and really thinking about how we make changes that not only limit harm to individual communities, but provide opportunities for success and equity for all of our communities.
Next slide, please. At this moment, as what you will see, that is for discussion and review. If you can screenshot this for your personal use, if you have that capability. We have Lewis, Llewellyn, Dunaway going to Selwood. The blue squares are the blue schools are middle schools. The yellow are elementary schools and the green are high schools. If you see the words RUS, that means a Russian program is in that school, or CHI, that means Chinese immersion. SPA means Spanish. Then we have Japanese, JP, and VIE, which is Vietnamese immersion. What we see specifically in phase 1 that will be implemented according to this proposal in August 2021 is that Lent would become a Spanish-only immersion school with Marysville, Creston, and Arleta all fitting to Kellogg Middle School, which Kellogg Middle School will then become a Spanish immersion school. And on the other side of that, we have Bridger, which will become a full Chinese-only immersion school, and Clark, which will turn into a neighborhood K-5, and Atkinson, which would turn into a neighborhood K-5, will be feeding into Harrison Park Middle School, which will become a Chinese immersion school as well, or continue their Chinese immersion program, and then feed to Franklin High School. You see as well that different schools are changing towards which high school they go to. And then also we see that the big change here is that Richmond, Vestal, Glencoe will now feed to Mount Tabor, and Mount Tabor would feed to Madison High School, where they will join with the Japanese, Spanish, and Vietnamese immersion program. At this specific scenario, creative science itself is currently in the Clark building, and they would lose their building. And currently, there is no location for creative science.
I think we can move to the next slide.
So what this does is how the discussion proposal addresses themes. There's some strengths and challenges that we all agree and disagree in some points. The strengths that have been pointed out by PPS are that it maintains a local neighborhood K-5 option for Harrison Park families in the Clark building. There's more DLI offerings near native speakers, creates more socioeconomic balance between middle schools, and resolves existing split feeder patterns and doesn't create new splits. Would somebody else do challenges, please?
The plan obviously has lots of challenges as well. The biggest challenge has been the proposal of major changes from the existing DLI locations and concerns about the intended and unintended consequences of those relocations. And also over and under the utilization of the buildings for high school and middle school is still an issue. The proposal doesn't solve the enrollment issues there. Alexandra, do you want to take the last two?
Sure, I'm happy to. So some challenges is leaving the creative science program in an unlocated building at this point. That is something that I know will be explored more in depth in phase 2, as well as the K-5 school underutilization. The coalition will continue meeting in starting next year, and in phase 2 we will be addressing boundary changes for programs, and so that's where some of these challenges could be resolved, or more information could come into the mix of our proposals.
And just a note, if anybody has tried to dive into the charts and numbers and data, that all of the data reflects existing enrollment at existing schools. And so the movement of the schools sort of assumes existing enrollment moving to the new location. And so phase 2, which would involve sort of possibly redrawing boundaries, would potentially solve some of the enrollment imbalances that exist between the K-5s.
And I think that's what we do. And then we are back to our district personnel to continue with the next slide. Thank you, Dee and Alexandra, for your partnership.
Thank you, guiding coalition members. It's great to hear a little bit about the work you've been doing and what folks have been wrestling with and want to continue to think about, especially tonight. We have opportunities even beyond tonight to impact this process, and really want to hear from our families and students and communities, and have an opportunity through a survey that's open until Monday the 23rd. But on Thursdays, our guiding coalition meets, and as an opportunity to really see the week-to-week revisions that will be as a result of all of the learnings we discover. And we can move to the next slide and talk a little bit about our format for the rest of the evening. And so we spent some time doing a presentation. It's a little past 6:30, but now we'll break out into rooms. You'll find breakout rooms that are really meant to be design stations, where we look at the next kind of configuration that we just took the look at with our Southeast Guiding Coalition members. And to note, I know the phase 1 focus includes Kellogg as this focus for 2021. And also want to mention our creative science program will kind of have a site placed in the second phase of our process. And so as we kind of think about these things in our design stations, you can hop there now and going to ppsenrollmentbalancing.com/Zoom meetings, and they will be beginning momentarily. So thank you very much for connecting with us during tonight's main presentation. And we will transition now to opportunities to hear from you all in the breakout rooms. And we will see you there. And thank you very much for joining us.